let us be interactive. If you have any specific queries we need to look at or we need to discuss during the session, please feel free for that. I'll be open to that. Okay. So any questions or any expectations anybody need to put forward before I start the session?
Yes, sir. I myself, Shine Sebastian, I am expecting something from you because recently we had an not an attack, but we had lost a couple of data from, and it was in the news, and
it was a
maybe,
minor one.
yeah.
I am aware about that. That is a minor one. The only thing is it's how media perceives it, or there is a terminology called mediafication now. So that is how it works on that. That we will, during the course of this, we will take it up. So while
and one more thing is
yeah.
that we have KSEB also has data servers, and we have even portals for paying the electricity bills and new connections, etc. We never had an attack, but still, if you have something to share in terms of any critical points, please cover that also. Thank you, sir.
So, sir, from my perspective, I don't have a very specific insight on your infrastructure, on how you're running that. But on this particular attack, I spoke to a few people, so I have a general understanding. And that is nothing new compared to what is happening in the other sites also. So we will cover during the session on when to do it. I have my background is, one of the reasons why people normally put the background before we starting a session is this will help us to relate, saying that where I come from and what is my experience and on which domains. So the whole reason is to just relate what I'm trying to talk. So that's the reason we put that. I'm an electronics engineer with a MBA in investment, which is on stock market. Currently doing a master's in law, which is on business law. Worked in a couple of companies in Middle East, Africa, Middle East, India, and US. In security domain for around 20 years, overall experience around 25 years. So that's my background. A late starter in the industry, but then last 25 years I'm in corporate. From the government perspective, so my father was a PWD engineer. He retired as a super engineer long back. He's no more. So all my life I studied across Kerala because of his transfers. So that's where I came from. So if you look at currently in the world, this is a slightly old slide, but the numbers are much higher than what is happening currently on the cyber world or on the digital world. Every second, we have more than 70,000 hours of video contents being watched by somebody. There are 25,000 more postings which is happening. So the world is moving so fast. Everything is through interconnected devices and the so-called internet. So you can imagine, so 5 years back, maybe around 10 years back, we all used to think that how will the adoption of computers and the interconnected world is going to happen. But in reality now is that it is so well connected, moving extremely fast. And if you look at the digital disruption, because every company, globally, any institute you go, everybody is talking about digital disruption or digital transformation. How the level to which it has been transformed. If you look at Uber, is the world's largest taxi company. They don't own any taxi. Airbnb is the biggest hospitality industry, or globally, wherever you want a room, they provide it, but they don't own anything. The largest telecom company don't have even a single cable line. Okay, that is a Skype and the WeChat or the web chats, all of that thing is happening. That is the way the world has changed. Many industries which we thought as very prominent couple of years time back is currently doesn't even exist. In my career, I worked with Idea Telecom. So always we used to look at these companies and say that we know at some point of time the disruption is going to come in a big way. We relied heavily on the voice calls, and when the 3Gs started coming in, the people used to come and predict we are going to make money on data and not on voice calls, and we never used to believe, because But the reality is that all the services, because currently most of the time people call on WhatsApp rather than on the normal line because that is better clarity and it works better fine. So that's how the world digital disruption has happened. From a cybersecurity point of view, our mission is to make the world a safer place. One of the biggest difference of cyber world to a physical world is that traditionally or historically, everywhere the government had a responsibility for protection. So whether it is our border security, the army, the police, so they were taking care of the responsibility of protection from a neighboring nations, from the other citizens, all of that. But when the cyber world came into picture, the government globally, not only our government, globally, the government took the hands off because they had no role to play in the protection in the cyber world. Okay. Because there was no perimeter, it was interconnected environment, nobody was owning it. So it was totally a different field where everybody looked at that. And initially there was a lot of struggle in individuals and companies to understand this concept that we have to worry about our own protection. And that was not the way we were all brought up, because the government, the militaries, the border securities, the police was there to protect. Now we are in a world where we have to protect ourselves. That is the cyber world. And it is not about zeros or ones, it is about making a world a safer place. So the primary focus of or the fundamental focus of cyber security is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. There are two more spaces coming into picture very strongly. One is accountability, to a great extent is been defined, and the next is safety. So during the course of that thing, I'll touch why safety is becoming a major issue in the cyber world. Now, who is attacking? So many a times we hear about cyber attacks happening. In reality, everybody is attacking each other. We can be compromised by our customer. We can be compromised by a former employee. It can be a current employee. It can be a Bitcoin miner doing a cryptocurrency drill, or a unknown hacker. It can be our own government, or it can be somebody else, other government. Literally everybody is attacking each other. And that is where, from when you are in a cyber world, or when you are responsible to protect your organization, because you run your data center in Trivandrum, you have a large environment or IT estate with you. Now you need to worry about all these attackers. Now, the type of defense and type of identifying also varies between each of these parties, because if it's a nation state attack coming out, there's an army behind it which is going to attack you. And the muscle power they have is extremely huge. So that is where the cyber world has a big problem, because at the same day, you may be handling many of those groups together. It can be somebody motivated because of a religious fundamentalism. It can be a political agenda. It can be a nation political reasons. It can be anything. And like I mentioned, it can be an espionage groups, it can be an activist, a nation state, a competition, scripted days, lone wolves, organized crime unit. So same day in the same environment, these are the type of attacks. In the physical world, you don't see that so many varied group of people trying to attack you on the same time. So now if you look at the type of attacks are also changed, because economic conflict is no longer confined to a market. If US says that they have an issue or a trade war with China, most of the time it is not based on any geographical division or any activity. It goes beyond any space defined. Military conflicts most of the time doesn't happen on a battlefield right now. It is happening in a cyber world or somewhere else, or through some agenda or a propaganda. It happens in a different way. Political conflicts is no longer confined to diplomacy and elections, because in my last job prior to this, I was looking after threat intelligence in the Middle East, Africa, Eastern Europe region. So there you will suddenly see that there is a lot of political conflicts or regional conflicts, and that most of the time happens in the cyber world rather than on the physical world. Economic, military, and political conflicts are no longer separate. Everything is merged together in this space together. That is the type of attack environment we are currently talking about. And from a threat actor's perspective, the modern criminals money is the paramount currently, because because they know there is a lot of money available and everybody is chasing out for this. And the cyber criminals are no longer in the shadows. Earlier, our concept, they used to come at very off-peak hours, late nights, and they used to come in a shady way. Now they're coming to the main door at the peak hour, because they are not shying away from anywhere. They have their own techniques. They may be, because in the morning, if you look at in our Active Directory, 8 to 10 is the most busiest time, because every employee is coming inside. We are authenticating everybody. The attacker is also there at the same time. And in a normal time, you get 10% of your workforce getting a failed login due to various reasons. And the attacker is also trying at the same time. So that is where they are in the mainstream. We cannot look at a pattern saying that this is an odd man out or a different pattern at an odd hour. It is no longer that way. New marketplaces, payment modes are evoked for quick monetization, because Bitcoin came into picture. The money transactions cannot be traced back. It is easy to get to do a transaction on Bitcoin. That made the cyber criminals really go very lucrative business for them on that. They are highly sophisticated. They are coordinated, much better than the defenders. The attackers are coordinating together. In the later stages, I have some examples of that, but they are persistent. Many a times the persistence means, if there is, so in the attack side, we normally categorize attacks in 3 different forms. One is a commodity. When you get a virus, we know that, okay, everybody has that virus. We know antivirus will clean it. So they pump this virus to, say, 1 million users, and the maximum they want is 5% of them for that who don't have an antivirus. That is the commodity virus. Then comes sophisticated viruses. It is advanced technologies. Normal antivirus cannot detect it. You need high-end, the up-to-date patching to stop it. So there is properties of the third type comes in called advanced persistent threat, because they use extremely advanced tools. They are persistent. They will not go off, because I have seen attacks consistently for a 1 month, the same group in front of you, because they're knocking every door to find out a hole over there. So that is the APT groups, the persistence. So when you see an attack, we also need to look at who is behind it. Okay, is it a commodity group, or is it a sophisticated group, or a APT group? And then we define, so later I'm touching that also, saying some properties which we can identify, because our response has to be based on that. They are exploiting on technical side, they are exploiting on the process side, they are exploiting on the human side. The social engineering attack is the most common, because somehow they manage to, most of the bank account compromises or financial frauds, when we look at, they manage to get the OTP out of you. They've done a social engineering attack against you. They convinced you to give this password, the OTP out, or the passwords out. And that is because we started trusting things blindly. In the recent attack of US also, the worry part is that, because the information they collected or was available can be used to profile and do a social engineering attack against somebody else. I can call them and give a lot of information where they believe only the department has it, but by which they can have a blind trust on the person who is calling. So anonymous networks and bulletproof hosting are safe havens. There are hosting companies, especially in the Eastern Europe region, where they call it bulletproofing hosting, because they can sustain offensive attacks. They are immune to legal systems to catch, because they are well placed where you can do maximum spamming activities and scams from there. At one point of time, there's one person who wrote a book called Spam Nation. So in that book, what he says is that 50% of the attack was coming from 2 different groups in that region, because he lived there for a long time to understand that, and that is the power of groups which is behind it. Ecosystem for buying and selling tools are, because currently, even if I don't know how to develop a tool to attack somebody, I can buy it from the market. There are groups available. Everything I can outsource. I just want to say I need an attack, or I need to deploy malware in 3 million systems. There are groups I can outsource it. And they're highly, highly motivated because of the success they have. They are making tons and tons of money. So now if you look at every attacker or the groups has their own specialities. So this is a company called CrowdStrike. A few years back, they sent out a site based on the net. So that is their naming convention. But what I've seen is, if you look at the Far Eastern, some country when they attack, they do extremely stealth way of attacking. They don't want anybody to know. They wanted only the informations, your blueprints, your intellectual properties to be taken out. They don't want to be in the radar. And even if there is an issue, they don't negotiate for money, because what they wanted is only the intellectual property, that information. But on the other side, if you look at Eastern Europe groups, when they attack with a great force. They literally take over your accounts over. They may stay for a year in your network, take over every nook and corner of it, and then show you a sample saying this is what we are doing, and then put a 2 weeks time frame to either they bring down the entire network out or pay this much of money. So that is the way that groups play. So most of these groups has their own properties. So normally a defender, when they see a type of attack, fair understanding is where they come from. Traditionally, we used to look at the IP address and say, this is where they originate. Now what happens is they use a cloud server hosted somewhere in the other side of the world, and they use it. Or they go to internet exchanges in Netherlands or some other countries and originate the attacks from there. Just on a side note, from a defender's point of view, that is why some companies even look at the keyboard layout which is coming in a traffic. So if they are seeing a different language layout coming out, they immediately say, okay, this is originating from Netherlands, but the keyboard is not matching with what they use, so it can be somebody hopping through that. That is the level of sophistication happening in this industry. So if you look at the type of in every attackers, if you look at, these are the high level motivation they have. It can be a financial damage, it can be a disruption of your network, it can be an espionage, it can be a fraud, a blackmail, and access to data. And on the right side, it says, whoever will be that. It can be a cyber criminal, a terrorist, a hacktivist, a script kiddie, cyber researcher, because a lot of researchers come in front of you because they are trying to gather information and go to the public and say, I found it there. What do they need? They need a credit of their technical excellence, or they are maybe going to some other company and talking, saying that I have the similar information about you, and so let us negotiate a ransom for that. Because many a times what comes in the news and what they're really targeting can be totally different things. Or it can be a competition. While we always say competition, in my 25 years of my experience, no company which I worked asked me to do anything against the competition. We always participated, collaborated with our competitions because we felt that is more healthier way. So 80% of cyber crimes purely on money, and this is how an old data, but overall this is how the percentage looks like. Like I mentioned, if you wanted to do a major malware attack, there are different stages which is required for that, because somebody has to develop the malware and somebody has to scan the entire global network or that particular companies or a global network or a regional network, because some groups, when they attack, they avoid few countries because they will, in the code, they will very clearly says, if it is in this particular region or this particular country, don't do that. So we have to identify that the potential candidates, somebody has to develop it. Once it's developed, you have to compile it and put it into a server. That should be hosted in a service center. And then somebody has to deploy it. After deployment, somebody has to collect the money and there should be a payment. So there are so many groups on an attack infrastructure. It is if you really wanted to make money, you literally can make hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars within a very short span with a proper attack. Without major disruptions, you can make that. But that need a lot of insight. Earlier, the concept was we wanted to have everything with us. Now it literally works in this manner. Everything is a different group. I am the sponsor as an individual, as a government, as an organization, organized group. I decide, okay, today my target is, or this week my target is a particular industry, a banking sector or a mining industry or whatever is it. And then I go and call up the people saying that I want to develop a malware and it should operate in Windows 7 or whatever that specialty. Then I go to each of this part. Everybody has their own role. They work with SLAs. And this is how organized groups come into picture. Now, in all of your emails, earlier I mentioned about the mail on spam nation. There is a coverage of, in that particular book, all of you would have got mails in your personal emails on Viagra's and a lot of other things, which is suddenly you will see, why are you getting this mail? In reality, that industry is running a very strong, profitable parallel healthcare industry. Because in the US and European nations, you need insurance to get prescription medicines. And there are a lot of people who cannot buy medicines. They cannot afford to have insurance to have these medicines prescribed and to be bought. This parallel industry is actually supporting them with the medicines what they need. Why is it not been taken down? Because whenever the agency has done the study, the understanding in that book it says is around 80%, 90% are genuine. Okay, so if they publish that report out, more people will move there. And India, Philippines are the major, and Mexico is the major countries where these medicines come from. A lot of people are depending on that. So in between, to create to change the focus or just to create a nuisance or some noise to avoid things is what we get the mails in between. But it is a big parallel industry which is running over there. Net, what is happening is, if you look at, this is the statistics published by Symantec in 2018. They published in 2019, the data of 2019. All parameters of attacks is going high. Web attacks is going by around 56%. The ransom variants are going by 46%. So I worked a lot in South Africa. So South Africa is one country where you get a lot of ransomware attack. So why South Africa is getting ransomware attack? Because South Africa's majority of the industry are mining industry, the diamonds and those type of things. They have a weak IT sector or a security groups. So when they get a ransom, they normally pay money. So once you start paying the money, all attackers know that if you attack in South Africa, chances of getting money is high. So everybody go there and attack. And a couple of months back, even the city of Johannesburg had an attack. So that is the stage it look at. So even on the physical crime also, physical or cyber crime, if you look at across India also, every state, every place has a pattern of attacks or a type of attacks. The same is replicated in the cyber world also. And why is companies falling? Because the brittleness of the system we built. We built a very, very loose systems. It is not robust enough to handle things up. In a wild era of cyber world. Any questions at this point of time? I can take any questions before moving on, please.
Sir, ransomware was attacked even in Kerala, I believe. So what they look for is, So what they look for is they took our hard disk data, something like that, right?
So if you're getting, so ransomware, the concept is this way. So they get access to your system and use an encryption and do a complete encryption of your data. So if they are staying there for a long time, even your backups will be encrypted. Because recently in one of the large companies in India, the scenario was that they were there for months. So you have a weekly cycle or a monthly cycle of your backups. because over this period of time, everything got encrypted. Then they come and negotiate and say, give me the money, I'll give you the key, you're back to normal as usual. If you don't give the money, it's a big question mark. How do you bring it up? Because you don't have a backup. Okay. And you don't have a time frame in front of you, because you cannot say that, okay, I'll wait for 3 months to build it back. By that time, your customer is lost. You're irrelevant in the industry. So many people pay money. So one of the new type of jobs coming out is mediators or negotiators here, because the company may not negotiate directly. They use an agency or an individual. So there is the attacker will also have an intermediary. They talk each other, agree upon the payment, and the payment goes in Bitcoin. Many companies are paying, unfortunately. That's a reality.
Sir, why the attack is only on Windows system? Why they don't do attack on Linux?
It is not only on a Windows system. Attacks is happening everywhere. But why Windows more is because that constitutes at least 80% of the entire world's IT system. So if I am spending money and bringing together with a great ambition, should I focus where 80% of the world estate is running, or should I look at 5% where they run Linux? That is the reason. It's purely because of the number of targets are more there, and they have more vulnerabilities which is disclosed. Exploits. So many people are writing the exploits for that only because of popularity. 80%, I just took a number. I don't know what exactly is the percentage of Windows, but majority are running on Windows. That is why they wanted to attack it.
Sir, why can't we trace them? Because we have that IP address or something like that. So can we trace them and file a suit, something like that?
So I worked on a very large case. Okay, very large case of it as a national agencies also had interest on that because of the type of threats they put it. So what we found on that was that email originated from Switzerland. So now the question is, Switzerland has a lot of privacy issue. Can I go there and ask for the mail's details? Okay, that was the first problem. So they said, come with a court order. So we went with a court order. They said, this is a one district court. What is the relevance of it? Then we had to seek the help of foreign ministry and evoked a treaty, got into Switzerland groups. And then when we asked, there are so many people on that, not only me, I was only one chain of it. They were using a Proton mail, which perishes, or they used a Gorilla mail, which perishes after after 24 hours, 5 hours, the mail just vanishes. Okay, so there is no trace. And this group has only very limited information with them. They were saying that in created, how many times it accessed, they had only that. Then we understood it actually came from dark web. So, or a Tor network, which means they literally take you a round trip across the globe. At least 5-6 different countries they will hop to reach their final place. So when they're hopping, it is too difficult for you to go to each of this country and ask for the information in a sensible time. So good attacks are happening on Tor network. You cannot find it out. Now, earlier you asked the Windows story. Now, if you look at majority of the mobile attacks are happening on Android. Okay, because more people are using on Android. The attacker who is looking more an attack on a mobile phones, motivation is different from a person who is attacking a server farm or a Windows individual system. Everybody has different intent. Mobile may be to take your photographs out, or maybe to listen to your conversation, or something of that sort. The server farm is for a company's intellectual properties to bring down the company. Individuals can be for your credentials, for your banking, can be many other things. So everything has a pattern. If you look at the motives and the means they do it, you relate back to saying that who will be behind it. And many a times we also see that when an actual attack happening, you all go behind it. Their intent will be completely different. They are attacking something else. And they wanted to distract you from focusing there. That is how they play around over there. Any other questions?
Country consent they can use Linux or some other than Windows. Because,
I didn't get you, sir. Once more, can you repeat?
no. As far as a country or a country concern, so their information they can use instead of Windows, they can use Linux or any other platforms. Okay, sir. So
you are saying we as a India country, we decide that we create our own operating system?
no, sir. We are suppose our state load center, our main server we are using Linux. As far as but other servers are Windows. So sir said why the attacks is coming Windows means almost 80% of the system are Windows. If it changes to some other operating system like Linux, this attack, whether this attack can be reduced.
Okay, so no. Linux, Apple, everybody is under attack. Okay, the question is that if my intent is to go and pump a 3 million virus, a commodity virus, and I'm targeting the end user. Okay, anybody who is sitting with my attempt will be to do on a Windows. Okay, because majority of them. But if I'm attacking a data center, I may relook at say I will do more study based on the recons or the ports opened or the banners. I'll be able to say fairly what type of systems you will be using it. Or I look at the LinkedIn pages of the engineers to find out what is their expertise they mentioned there. With that, I can profile and say this is the technology they use, and then I attack on that. So there is no immunity saying that I move to this particular technology because of that I'm out of it. Everybody is there. Only because of the popularity they attack here. That's the only difference here. Did that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. I'm going
Sir,
back to my Tell
sir,
me.
there are a couple of questions which are asked on the chat. If you are like to answer,
Yes, please. Yeah,
sir,
we can do it.
very quickly. Is there a history of attack on cloud systems?
Yeah. So cloud is popularly there only for the last couple of years time. Okay. There is attacks of various nature happening. So if you look at, there is another slide we are coming. Majority or 80% or 85% of the attacks are human errors. Okay. So S3 bucket is there in Amazon, which by default is a closed secured one. For testing purposes, for configurations, people make it to on and never put it back. 70 million or 7 million data records went out from S3 buckets because it was kept open. Anybody can go there and take it. Okay, so much of attacks are happening there. Is it the problem of the cloud? May not, because cloud, if you look at infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, I take an infrastructure, I assume blindly that cloud is secured. I configure the server the way I want, and I don't put any protection. I get attacked. We cannot blame the cloud because that's how I built it. Cloud is an extension of your own data center. They are giving only the space there. Then comes to the platform. There are attacks happened. At some point of time, you may see much more happening in a very big way. Okay, so sometime back, we were doing a research in my earlier company. How will the internet look like in 10 years' time? So one of our view was that since all the eggs are going to be in single basket, the attackers will be so much motivated. There is a possibility they will take down few, and that will lead to availability issue. We are not saying there will be a major problem. Availability will be a problem. And in the current interconnected world, 99.99% itself is not enough. So when you started seeing multiple outages, naturally because every outage is now translated back to a bottom or a cost impact of your revenue loss or whatever that is. So then the company will say, I'm not going to put my 100% of my estate in cloud. I'm going to put a hybrid. That may be the first stage. I will put some in on-prem and one on the cloud. And these equations can change. The current rush can change. So the answer, yes, cloud also happening, but most of the time the companies look at saying that, are they better than our data center? Is the people managing better than our technical staff? Do I need to worry about skill set on whenever people resign? So they look at various factors. And another thing is, most of the companies has spikes of capacity requirement because there will be seasonal. So look at an e-cart company or e-commerce company. They have seasonal sales. They go 10 times, 20 times of their sales. Should they keep a data center with everything in place? May not. Better to go to a cloud and scale up. So it is a balance of the requirement, cost, availability, everything balanced together. But the answer, yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I am CP George. This one,
Yes,
in the power sector, we have separate network. Actually, we are not directly, for example, controls and everything. Power sector, we have a separate network which is not interacted with this one in normal internet. How a hacker will come to that network?
See, SCADA network, we always, the concept wise, it is a separate network isolated. In reality, it is no longer an isolated network. Okay, the problem with SCADA is that because since you needed a high availability at any point of time, you are running legacy system, you are not patching because the confidence is saying that it is not connected anywhere, because of that I am okay. I know many oil sectors where they're using Wi-Fi to connect between the oil wells. Okay, there is a connectivity. They are creating dashboards of your performance management and key indicators through web portals. So slowly, I don't know, are we still confident to say that 100% it is isolated, or there are places where there is an integration or a connectivity happening? So one of the classic example was, yeah. Yeah, George.
Yeah, that depends on the management logic, because some actually in oil field also I worked. There we have an internet which can come at. There is a provision to go to internet, but in power sector, what I have seen is the network is extremely isolated, not connected to the normal internet.
But George, if you look at the entire life cycle of it, from the product to distribution to all of that thing together, the smart meters coming into picture and everything, if you're keeping 100% isolated with an air gap, it is a great story. But I'm not very sure. So a classic example, Stuxnet, which happened in Iran, that was a completely isolated environment. And it was an APT group because they were advanced, they were persistent, and they really wanted that. So as per the publicly available document data, what is known is that they bought in a USB drive, plugged into that, and that had a malware. That is how they could control the centrifugal speed. Okay. So now coming to a power sector. Power sector, especially in the US and Europe, the worry about an attack on power sector is really, really high. Okay, because that is why they call it the critical infrastructure. Why it is so critical compared to us is that take an example, New York. At any point of time, there are thousands of people in hospitals and old homes where they have life support systems running, which is purely running on power. And maximum maybe around 3 days it can go in generators. Okay, beyond that, they cannot, because if the power goes beyond that, you will see people die. Second is, their climatic condition is not great for living without heaters. So there was a university, one of the universities in the US done a study, and I happened to hear the professor talking once, and what he was saying is, if the power goes down for a very long time and it's continuously you will see the migration of people from the east of that country, Canada, New York, to the west and to the Mexico, which will be much bigger than the Syrian refugee movement, because those places are not good to live in the current, because of old age, a long time back, they would have used wood and everything, but in the current age, it is not possible. Most of these networks are vulnerable and it can be attacked because of the same reason, legacy systems not patched, yeah, and they have connectivity in some of the other forms. Then why multiple POCs happened? Why the attack is not happening is only because being a critical infrastructure, if you do it, it is an act of war. You will trigger a serious problem. That is why everybody is waiting. But the worry part is, if something goes out or really worse in the political era, and people are really going behind it, you will suddenly see attacks happening on critical infrastructure in a big way. We have seen this between Russia and their neighbors attacking the power sector. But globally, my understanding, POCs are ready, everybody know how to attack. The only reason it is an act of war. That's why they're not doing it. So
I think that's pretty great, sir. We have more questions, but we want to hear more from you, sir. So please go ahead with the presentation.
okay, so let me just share it, please. So we are in a wild west era. So why I'm using this term is in the is in the cyber world the attack happening? Is it something extraordinary or something new? It is not, because I have done a lot of study or reading on the physical war, and I've done a lot of comparison between these two. Traditionally, in the physical world, whenever there was a valuable asset which can be exploited or compromised easily, and there is no legal system to trace back or no technology to trace back and to penalize you with a proper judicial system, attacks always happened in the physical world. The cyber world is currently like that. Okay, there are valuable asset, which is the data or personal identifiable information, blueprint, intellectual properties are all available, and a lot of compromises are possible because of errors and omissions we have done. And even if you do properly, nobody is going to trace back, and you are not going to be penalized. And that is exactly what is happening. Another reason for cyber, the wild west is, Wild West was controlled by one corporate, which was the railway company. So they had the entire control of that region. In the cyber world, our search engines and few other companies has the control of us. When you are searching, or when we are searching for something in our browser, they decide what we should see. Because in the name of customization, filtering, all of that thing, and based on your previous historical browsings, they define a pattern and they show you only what you need to see. Okay, we are not seeing the real world. That is why Go, DuckDuck and type of browsers are getting popular, because that is not with a filter. That is straightforward. They say it is like the newspapers. There are some newspapers, they are blunt. They write what they feel is right. And many say give perceptions based on what they feel is right or good, you should see. And Wild West is in the same manner. We are also in the same manner right now. So apart from this normal thing, there comes the dark web. Dark web is much bigger than the internet. It is an extremely dirty place. Okay. In one of my earlier careers, I used to spend a lot of time in the dark web. Okay. It's really bad. To go to, so what is the difference between dark web and the normal web is, normal web, everything is searchable. You can actually search and find out where things are. In the dark web, it is not searchable. You cannot use a normal browser. It runs on something called onion routers or Tor networks. So you have a different set of browser which works only for the dark web. You have to be there. So it's really ugly in the sense, in the normal internet, you have sites called confessions and all of that thing. You will feel it is really bad. But when you go to dark web and look at, you see the extremes of humans' behaviors mentioned there. The cryptocurrency games, the arms sale, drug sale, everything happens on the dark web. Many of the suparis happens in dark web. So dark web exists, and some countries, mainly Middle Eastern countries, have strict rule if you use Tor network, but majority of the attacks we are seeing is coming from that side. So what is the fundamental difference is that traditionally security, like in the physical world, was built on a fortress model. So if you look at this photos, the king and queen will be there on the center. There are high walls, and inside the compound there are multiple inner walls. Outside you have moats and a bridge, which a collapsible bridge. So you control this fort. For centuries, this fort was good enough to protect. But then the kinetic power come into picture. Aerial bombing started. Forts was now no longer safer. So if you look at on internet, on the technology side also, the way we build our network is like a fort. We have the data on the user at the center. Then we had the endpoint, network, perimeter, layers of security. So anybody who needs to come, they have to come through the perimeter, pass through each of this network. And by that time, so if you look at the back here, when they built this fort, they never expect, the understanding was not that at no time they will be compromised. But so there is a formula. I need to provide resistance till the time I can bring in a reinforcement, or till the time I can detect it and bring a reinforcement. So that is how they create, okay, one wall, they can come fast, so let me create one more wall. Or they can climb, so let me increase the heights. Over the time, they understood various case studies, and that's how many forts are built. In the internet is also, so networks are also done that way. We created perimeters and layers inside. But now what happened is the cloud came, COVID came, the user and the data from the center moved out. He is no longer sitting within the network. So they are connected directly to the internet. Okay. Now, earlier, every company knew that this is the laptop he is going to use because that is a company provided laptop. This is the applications he has an access. He works only on this application. We had a and he works from this IP range. Now what happens is we have no control on that. And one more problem happened, which is called persona-based security. So I go to the office in the morning with the office computer. I connect in the office network with my office computer. I'm persona 1. I go home, use the office computer, home Wi-Fi, persona number 2. Evening I go to a club, I use computer there and their Wi-Fi and persona number 3. In all the 3 persona, I need to have access because that's how everybody's new world is that at any time, anywhere, any device, I need connect. I use my mobile phone, I use my tab, doesn't matter, I need connection. But from a security point of view, you are consistently changing your persona. So when I am using my office computer and the office network, I may have access to download a critical file. But when I'm going out, I may have an access, but I will not allow you to download. So we have to be adaptive to the security and change continuously. So the old model of layered securities are getting into trouble now because they are no longer effective. We are in an information overload, petabytes of data coming out. And that is where we need to find out what is happening in a very sensible time. In any investigation, if you look at, there are 5-6 components called where, what, how, why, and when. So only if we know this thing from the data, a large set of data, we are trying out this. Many a times we don't know why or who. I think who is missing here. That is why 6 are there. So that is the biggest problem between a physical world and a cyber world. Because physical world, most of the investigation answers to all the 6 or at least 5. In cyber world, most of the time it is only 3. And as I mentioned earlier, currently everything has to be open. Everybody needs fast access. Everybody needs everything to be accessed. I used Mac in my earlier organization. I need the same Mac here. I used a particular site to access videos or snapshots or pictures. I want the same here when I came here. These are all the demands of marketing people and the other. And we have to give it. Business will say that's how the new world works. And we have to protect in that open culture. That is where the challenge coming into picture. Like I mentioned, majority of the issues are self-inflicted wounds. We create application vulnerabilities. Developers are still creating the same old SQL injections and cross-site scriptings. And repeatedly, if you look at OWASP, top 10 vulnerabilities. Over the years, everything is the same except the ranking are interchanging because the developers are still creating the same. We are still making the configuration mistakes. Unpatched systems are still there. And then we say cyber attack is a problem. In reality, we don't have the cyber hygiene in our enterprise. From a security person's perspective, if you look at, when I started my career 20 years back, this is what we were. We used to come late night, off hours to the office, and nobody knows us by name. We were the firewall guys or the antivirus guys. We do changes in the firewall, or we go and fix antivirus in every machine. That is what our clean temporary files. That's where our role was. Security was a totally back-end job. And that, so essentially I mentioned, we had absolutely nothing on that particular job. We had overtimes because when users leave, we have to do a lot of activity. And now it changed. The security guys are in the forefront. They are highly paid. They are in high demand. They are called into board meetings very often. They are still not in the board fully, but many are reporting to CEOs. But the reason the entire enterprise became interconnected, data became the core, which has to be protected. And digital technology dependency is huge. Regulations, standards, privacies, penalties all went high. That landscape changed completely. Because of that, no other technology field in IT or on any other technology within a decade's time from a purely back-end off-shift guys came and sat in the board. It is only security guys. If you look at some of the recent issues which has happened, have you heard of this Jamtara scam? Which is currently there is a movie on Jamtara scam or a series in Netflix or in Prime, one of that it has. So Jamtara is a small district in Jharkhand. They are not educated group of people, and suddenly Jamtara became a big name everywhere because they became the capital of all the scams happening in the world, in the country. Roughly, it is estimated they took around 1,000 crores out from people doing scam, mainly on Aadhaar, PAN integrations and those type of things. And what I was told is that this was a big industry there. Everybody in Jamtara, every youngster who could speak some language was part of the scam. And it reached to a stage where even the top level VIPs also started getting their calls because they were combing the country like anything for that scam. When they made roughly around 1,000 crores, you can imagine their motivation to do more. So I was speaking to one of the police officers in Delhi saying why this is happening and why it is not getting stopped. So his reason was, so what he told me is, maybe there could be a lot of collusion between the law enforcement and these people. You take 1,000 crores, that is aggregated amount. One scam may be 10,000 or say 20,000. 10,000 guy may not go to the police station. And even if it goes, there are a pile of cases police may not entertain. Assuming that 20,000 seeks attention. So one 20,000 person went to the court and they write a very loose FIR. And after a couple of months, he is called to the so he goes to the judge, 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, he gets a bail. And the case next heard is after years. So this guy goes back to the same industry as a hero. So nothing happened to him. Okay, so what came to a case is only very small. So from everybody's perspective, they found the person, they arrested, they went to the jail, everything is hunky-dory. But in reality, nothing is stopping their motivation, they are continuing. And I know in some instances, the police or the law enforcement used to charge multiple cases on this person for the only reason he should not get a bail and go back to the industry. So that was Jamtara's scam. It was huge. And I remember a top official in that state at one point wrote to the other state saying that if you are getting any scam from my state, please let us know the number, we will take care of, because that was the priority they put this to stop. 1,000 crores. Another one called Mumbai IRS scam. So this is a newspaper clipping or a front page, Mumbai IRS scam. Thank you for calling IRS. I was involved in this at some stages of this case in US. with IRS, FTC, and FBI. So what they've done is that there were 1 or 2 call centers and hundreds of people. They used to call up the US citizens and profiled based on elderly people, people living alone, and saying that you have dues to the IRS, which is their tax service. And if you don't pay immediately, you will be arrested. You will be arrested in the next half an hour. They created the fear in their mind. And when they say, I don't have money, they exactly map the location of this house. They will say, 2 blocks away from your house, there is a CVS pharmacy or a Walmart. You go there and buy a prepaid card or an Apple iTunes card. So they have a set of things for 500 rupees, $500, and come and give the serial number, that secret number there. And that is how they used to do. And roughly $320 million were taken out. And one of the interesting things which I never understood, which the reason I was participating to understand was, where does this money go? We are talking about $320 million from one group. And this Mumbai IRS scam, or many scam centers, the scammer is not aware that he's a scammer, because his manager has told him that IRS has given us a contract, your role is to do this. They will act dumb. They will say, I will not pay the money. It is you to take the money. Your salary is depending on that. So many a times the scam calls we are getting, that guy doesn't know that he is a fraud because he's been told that way. This money actually goes to the Hawala network and to China to a great extent, because of that time their iTunes were blocked. So in the gray market, these serial numbers were available. So this is a big industry collaborating across the globe. That is it. In the lockdown, we are seeing a lot of scams happening, saying that you get the bank loans, waiver of bank loans, here, there. So many are happening. And this is not going to end, because it's a highly motivated group, because people are paying them money and they are surviving without any problem. Now the question comes in, is the cyber attack limited to an economic offense, or we have to worry beyond that? Normally, when an attack happens, end of the day, it is a penalty or a lot of money being lost. But now the world is changing with IoT coming into picture, and IoT getting a part of everybody's normal life. Say, automated car, my heaters are related to this. Everything is going to have an IoT component. I can actually harm an individual. Somebody can die because of compromising an IoT. And that is the time all the cybersecurity guys are going to be accountable or answerable to the crime unit of an enforcement body, because currently it is economic offense group who talks to us. Now that will change when the people are involved and they have fatality because of that. Then it is the crime unit. That is the world which is currently moving to. IoT will change the shape of the battlefield completely. Are we as an individual a target for an attack? Many a times people will say, I go to organizations and take this class and ask, they say, why should we? We are a junior guy. We have nothing to do with this thing. Or I work in a totally different. Every individual is a target for an attack if we are not careful. It can be may not be for you, maybe for one of your close friends, maybe for somebody in your family, maybe for the job you are doing, the information you have it, maybe because of you have an admin privilege in your company. It can be any reasons, but you are a potential candidate. And so many people are interested to find out that also. Now the question, is our children safe online? It's a big question now worrying a lot of people. This is a book written by Sanjay Kumar Garud, who is the DIG of South, an amazing person, an IPS officer. He has written this book a couple of years back, a really good book, where he has taken up a lot of issues where children are going through. We need to really worry about our kids and youngsters in the cyber world without right supervision. This is a very, very dangerous world. Now the school system, COVID, everything is mandating to have them on the internet. They need supervision. You need to have discussion with them to say the danger over there. Many times it is not cool to write whatever they want or upload your photos. So normal scenario on a photo is that if your grandparents approve your photo, that photo you can upload it. Otherwise, don't do that. You don't have to comment everything because your personalities, your personas are defined based on what you write, what you access, what you post in the internet. Many times you have a peer pressure to do it. We have to handle kids very well. And also, you should encourage kids to come back and talk to you if they have a problem. The problem with the cyberbullying to a personal physical bullying is in a physical environment, you know exactly who's attacking you, what they know, why they are doing it. You have a lot of answers. In a cyber world, you don't know who's attacking you. It may be a close friend, it can be a neighbor, it can be a relative, it can be anybody. And you don't know what they know. When they say that I know about you, just think about it. You get a mail one evening saying, I know about you a bit more than you think. Gone. You're paranoid. In our conscious, we know there is nothing, but you can become paranoid. And what if it is in kids? They need supervision. And many times they are afraid to come and talk to parents. The reason is the parent will immediately start blaming. From a parent's perspective, he is also going through this for the first time. He also have no idea what to do with it. But because I have worked on investigation for a very long time, many of the people I interacted, I may not remember their names, but I still remember the fear in their eyes when they came to us saying that they are under blackmailing or they are under that problem. Because ruthless guys are there, they are insensitive of their consequences, they will do it. So when kids come, you should be able to listen to them. There is legal system available without compromising the identity of the individual. Police force is good. Everything can be tracked back. So this book is a good one to read. Now, like I said, few things we all need to look at, saying, can we avoid roaming password? This concept is saying, I have a Gmail account, I have an office account, I have my Facebook, I use the same password everywhere. But be very clear, if one gets compromised, everything is going to be compromised. So the first thing an attacker does is, I get your password, I go to your Facebook, Hotmail, Gmail, everything, and see whether the same works, and I lock everything up. Okay, you may be doing a shopping in a small cart, they ask for to create an account, you use the office address or office email address and gave the same password. They don't have a big security, so never use a roaming password. Majority of the attacks are happening because of that. Understand the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. If you're doing a transaction, if you're writing sensitive information, make sure that it is HTTPS. Otherwise, middleman attack. There is a concept called evil twin. Because you may be accessing one Wi-Fi, I can come there and keep another Wi-Fi device with the same name. And if HTTP is the one, I can create a middleman and take everything out. So be very careful, is it HTTP or public Wi-Fi? There is a possibility of evil twins. There could be a possibility of loosely configured Wi-Fis. In that scenarios, where if you are doing a transaction or sensitive action, use your phone's hotspot at that point of time. Don't use the public Wi-Fi. Many companies give them their own hotspots when they travel rather than using a hotel one or any of those things. Information sharing, you need to be extremely careful what you share. I'm going on vacation, I'm meeting these people, I had a party with that person turned 50 because of that. I went there, this person's kid got admission, this college, people will profile you with that. So in the recent compromise or news about your data center, it is not that attack which is worrying, because it was only that you are disclosing extra information on that. But the worry part is that, can somebody take that information and use it for social engineering, call people and say that your current bill is this, your consumption is this is your name, and make them believe that you are an officer calling from there, and based on them take it forward. So that is the reason. I understand that the CAPTCHA was created after that, but I was told that still there are some issues still pending which may have to look into that. Another thing is you have to tell your kids very clearly, internet is not the source of truth. Everything what you see here, there is not true. Many, because there was a study sometime back, they created a word in Google, in the internet, and populated in the Google to come that in the first. And in some survey exams, they gave this question. Majority of the people got the answer from the Google by Googling that. In reality, that was a word created to see how many people will use it. That is the internet intent. Fake news is, so everybody should understand that, especially for your kids, that we have to tell them that is not the source of truth. Spam and scam mails, when you are getting a mail, it look very genuine because it will say that your payment has a problem, you have to click here. Please go to that sender mail and look at your email address. Many of the times the email address because it will display whatever it is correct. But when you click on that thing, it will say abcd.com or something, which is no relevant to that company which you are dealing with. Make sure to do that on that. Business email compromise is a major problem. Many Indian companies and globally lost money in crores. So what it happens is, I am a payment person. I am supposed to do payment for various things. I have 1,000 customers or vendors I have to pay. I get pressure from so many person, a mail from my CEO or somebody stop saying that you need to do the payment immediately, or the customer will say I changed my bank address. So they will put a pressure on you and misguide you to do a payment to a wrong place. And many big companies lost money in this way. It is called the BEC attack or business email compromise. Social media, friends of friends, because somebody anonymous will come and try to get friend with you. You accept friends, they go to another 10 people, they may be targeting one of your friend. That friend's view is that you are a friend, so I go and agree and connect with them. So friends of friends, when you are accepting in social media, be very careful whom you are accepting, because there are a lot of people who are dedicatedly doing this type of activity. Tomorrow they may send you a link to click, they may be sending you a mail to say download something. It can happen because this doesn't happen overnight. These are all planted for a long-term activity. Distractions, especially kids. I have known a case, a good academically studious kid, 10th standard exam. Few days before that, friends started removing her from the list. They are all writing bad comments. And I know the parents of this kid, and the kid suddenly started pulling back. She's totally withdrawn from everything because she's feeling that my friends doesn't like me. They have a problem with this thing. Exam has only a few more days in front. It's a compromise. They done on that account and made it there. It was a targeted one by some other students. It happens. So you need to watch out very clearly when their behavior changes or we have to tell them, because today I was speaking to a pediatrician. He says the kids now doesn't understand the fantasy and the reality. They cannot separate each other. They believe the world of games and the internet games and everything is the reality, and they don't differentiate. We need to be very, very careful about that. And there is no secret in the digital space. We think that everything is good, but everything is locked. If we wanted to track back, we can track back to anything. Then the question will come why we are not tracking back an attacker. The problem there is it all depends on the magnitude of the crime. If the police feels or the law enforcement sees it's of a high magnitude and we need to trace back, they can trace back. But many times what happens is you go back and say, my photo is morphed in Facebook. 3 weeks to get from Facebook. By the time your damage is already done, nobody to follow up. So the case reaches nowhere. So, but understand that even in a closed room, whatever you're doing is all recorded. Software. All the pirated software, you cannot. So at home, I bought a computer. Along with I avoided paying Microsoft. I bought a pirated software. But you are not getting the patch updates. All the attacks are coming based on the vulnerabilities which that patch has to fix. Even if you pay that 5,000 or 10,000 rupees extra, that is cheaper than multiple times you have to format and your information going public than using a pirated application. Same in the apps for the mobile phone. There was a mobile torchlight app. They need access to your location, your contact list, everything, but the utilities will torch. Why do they need? Because they're giving it free to get all this information. So you need to be extremely sensitive what you're downloading and keeping, because they may be listening to you, or they may be taking out your conversations, your photos, your passwords. So extremely careful what you install it. Free range. And mobile phones, you feel that is always with you. Just think about a situation, your phone gets lost, or it has to be repaired, you give to a shop, or a friend takes to make a call. You don't carry so much of sensitive information or the photos in your phone. It can get leaked. A large percentage of photographs coming online are through one of this. The reality. Online supari. I can give a supari to anybody to defame a person. I don't want to kill him. I can actually say 3 months period, send him slow shocks. And surely you will see the impact in 3 months. There are people who can take the contract. Last one, the songs.pk. Sometime back, we had a very popular site called songs.pk. And latest for music, zero cost, you get it. It was actually hosted in Pakistan, and they were giving malware. And just for free, I go there and take it everything from there. So these are a few things you need to be extremely careful about. I have the problem. Annotate is gone. Any questions here? And we have to look at the timelines also. The next slides are all on 8:41. We started at 7:30. Oh, we are already. Any questions? My questions next are only if you're looking as a career for security, nothing more.
Yes, sir. So there are a lot of questions coming up in terms of cloud. We have already covered. So the next thing, I'm just quickly going forward. Why the new hackers are preferred to operate from internet server Netherlands?
So Netherlands, I just took an example. So take an example, you are operating from Far Eastern country, and we have an IP logic kept saying that if you're seeing a range from that countries, please, so our neighboring country, many companies has a logic saying that if an IP comes from there, please alert. So instead that I host a server in one of these exchanges, and or in a cloud, and from there I hope through that server to come here. So I will not suspect that as a problem. That is the reason. Netherlands, I just took as an example because they have a big internet exchange.
Okay, sir. Next thing is, has Bitcoin transaction been legalized in any country?
There are. I have seen Bitcoin ATMs in South Africa. I was also, that's the first time I'm seeing it in a shopping mall. I have seen a Bitcoin ATM. Many countries has made it legitimate.
Okay, sir. Next question is at the individual level, what are the steps we can take to protect?
That is why the last slide I shared was that it has 2 devices.
Yeah,
So,
I just mute him.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can go ahead. I mean, the question is
Yeah,
perfectly on how to protect our iPhones, Microsoft 10 OS.
No, that is
at the individual level.
Last slide. That's what I said. Avoid pirated software. Make sure the antivirus is there, because these are cost when you look at the first time. But if you're on a recurring cost of format and fixing, if you look at this as small money, so better use it. Okay, so those things are the major problems. Roaming passwords, unnecessary app in your phone. The many times in companies when I worked at, you go back to somebody and say you have a malware inside or a virus inside your computer. He said, okay, check it. When you check it out, night they were going to some bad networks. And he will come back and say, no, my nephew was using it. He said he had homework. I never knew this is what he was using for. So be sensitive. Understand that this is a bad world or a minefield. You need to walk very carefully and take all the precautions. That's at a high level. That's what it is.
Sir, what is your opinion
So I
So
think
what
that
is your
includes, yeah,
opinion
please.
on data security of government organization in India, both central and state? Does government put enough interest on security? I think I believe you were part of Cyber Dome of
I am
Kerala.
cyber. I have worked with central agencies also. See, the problem is when you say government, that is also end of the day done by most of the IT companies in India. They are the contractors, they are the vendors who done all of that. There is enough and more funds. Okay, but then if you look at government, it's an extraordinary large networks. Okay, we have skill shortage. Like any other country, we have serious skill shortage. There was a discussion sometime back, should we look at civil service and add cyber as one more category, like IRS and IFS? Should we bring cyber also as a category? There was a discussion. There was a discussion whether IITs and NITs should have more focus courses on security for engineering. But then the discussion was saying that the number of people coming out is limited on a yearly basis, and what we need is much bigger. In my understanding, China is building 30 universities only on cyber. That's what somebody told me. I have now validated it. So we have a shortage of people, and that need to be addressed, especially when we are going with a big digital plan. But all my understanding, government has not cut any corners. They have the right intent. There is a funds available, but like any corporate is facing the problem, they are also facing.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more question is there. Nowadays, we are all in digital world and digital payments are being common. How we secure these digital payments? Are our mobile banking platforms are safe? Please give some points of procedure for more
So
safety.
none
One
of the
credit card case. Okay,
none
yeah,
of the
that's a
fraud
Google
cases.
payment also.
You see, none of the fraud cases which has happened in India never went back to say that bank was weak or their platform was weak. Majority of the case which I know about are related to the password being OTP being given, password being shared, the loose things done from a user side. Okay, but our consumer laws are strong, RBI is strong, where bank end of the day absorb the cost and give to the consumer. In majority of those cases, my understanding, it was not a banking platform which had a problem. So my view, comparatively good. And the limit of transaction, if you look at another way also, why all of this has a limit of maximum currency you can deal is that the risk acceptance on that. If so when we started mobile payment, it was limited to 5,000 rupees or in that range. It was looking at the rural side to give that quick transaction of money at a small amount. So that, and in that case, the security may be weak, but the risk we are taking is only for a limited amount. So my overall view is that the platform doesn't have a problem. User need to be more educated. And because systems are compromised, because I use pirated software, I don't have an antivirus, I'm infected, I go everywhere, I download everything, my system is completely compromised. I access bank from that particular system, naturally my password is gone. Or I use a roaming password. Majority of cases we see is that. There is one question I can read. If you use same password with two-step verification, yes, much better. If you have a two-factor authentication, you are much safer on that aspect. But the only problem is that in all, assuming that, because the way I understand that question, you have 10 access in 10 different places. I use the same, but I have two-factor authentication. In reality, two-factor authentication will be there is only in 3 places. The 7 is still open. But two-factor authentication is a much better way on password compromises. Active security also works the same way. If I see somebody at a particular hour, particular region, I see a transaction happening, I prompt for questions. That is the same as two-factor authentication.
Sir, how VPN can help?
VPN as a technology has been there for a very, very long time. It all depends how the concentrate has been in configured and how well your password is being. So some VPN has the capability to look at your device and say that whether it is a domain joined device, and does the device has the SCCM and the antivirus, everything run, then only I allow that device to connect. secured. Okay, they use adaptive authentication to say that that I prompt for additional passwords when it's required. So per se that is good, but the same VPN, some other company will be using just as a pass-through, just for a connecting hop. So it all depends how you configure on that. I could see one question saying that Bitcoin and ATM in legal in South Africa, but how is the weak IT sector? I didn't say it is weak IT sector per se, because it also depends on industry. Manufacturing, it's a banking sector, maybe much better. Their priority is people coming on their platform. They have a lot of transaction security is a prime thing. Regulations are strong, but in the manufacturing industry, it may not be. So we are seeing that type of incidents in that country, which is often they are transparent, saying they have a problem. But Bitcoin, they would have felt long back as a legitimate way of trading, so they allowed. These are two different things per se. The way of legalizing Bitcoin in India, I'm not sure. There is different, but I never bet. So far, I never done a bet on Bitcoin because it took a long time for me to understand what is Bitcoin. So that's where it is. We are almost at the end of the time. If there is any questions, I can take one or two more.
So there was a mention of HTTP and HTTPS. So once again, can you just explain it?
So yes, the difference between HTTP and HTTPS is that S is secured, which means when you are the information while in transit is encrypted. Okay, so the pipe is encrypted so that nobody can sniff the traffic from in between because it's an encrypted traffic. So if you are using for a bank transaction, you see an HTTP only. Don't do a bank transaction on that portal. Two possibilities. One is that site is a fake site. Second is that if you have having a bad Wi-Fi, when I say bad, somebody has fraudster kept it or a loosely configured Wi-Fi, or somebody deliberately sit on the in between, they can sniff the data out and see your password and the transaction or a chat. If it is HTTPS, you don't have that risk. The middleman attack is man in the middle attack is what we call it. You can avoid it. Somebody is asking, did I answer, ma'am, on that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. And CISSP, yes, it is an excellent certificate to have. But the problem with CISSP is very tough. But it changed your career completely. I was fortunate enough. I still think multiple times how I did. In 2001, I passed CISSP, and that literally changed my career. I was fifth in the country when I was in Saudi Arabia, and it's a good certificate. But when it is to come to certificate per se, there are so many certificates are there. So quickly before I closing it, 1 second. These are the domains that typical security guys build up. These are the type of roles security guys take. Okay, Chief Information Security Officer is the top guy in a security firm or any organization who deals with security. All the others are one or the other form of roles within that. Around 250 different roles are there. These are the type of certifications people take to build their knowledge on each of the space. And with that, and some people go deep into one subject and become a specialist. And I tried that. Then I understood I have no skills to be a specialist. So I went horizontally. I took certificates across the board. I took around 15 certificates in this. And then I became a generalist. So the advantage that helped to us, I could speak about whether it's a business continuity, privacy, governance, risk, incident handling. I could speak on that because one of the other certificate I had on that. Very few people do that way. Majority of the people try to be specialist. They go deep into. So if you're a firewall guy, he's a firewall intrusion specialist or an extrusion specialist or an incident handler. They go deep. They are amazingly technical candidates. Yes. So CSSP, yes, for your question, it is true. It is an excellent certificate to make a try. Nothing is impossible. Make a try. Any guidance record, let me know. I can connect because I wrote long back, but I can connect to people who have done that.
Thank you, Sunil. Greatly appreciate that.
The PPT later. I'll coordinate with them and give the PPT. Free SSL providers, whether it is free or not, if they are standard, because there is a mandate saying minimum strength is required, but surely better than nothing there. You need to encrypt. See, there are two aspects. For a security side, you need to encrypt everything. But from a defender perspective, because of encryption, I'm not seeing what is coming inside. When an attack comes through a pipe, detecting in any of my layers, because attack is straight away hitting my endpoint or a server, because the traffic is completely encrypted. So two way of looking at the privacy guys, end users, they allow encryption, but defenders hate encryption because I cannot see what is coming inside. I think we are almost at the end. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time being spent on a weekend for this.
Shine.
Sir,
ഷൈൻ, നമ്മുടെ സുനില് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലേ, സുനിലുണ്ടോ ലൈനിൽ, നമ്മുടെ ജനറൽ സെക്രട്ടറി?
Sunil sir.
സുനിൽ, അപ്പൊ ഒരു വോട്ട് ഓഫ് താങ്ക്സ് പറയാനായിട്ടേ സുനിലേ. Okay.
So we had an excellent session right now regarding cybersecurity. Thank you, Sunil sir, from Sunil me for giving an excellent presentation, which touched upon almost all aspects of cybersecurity. I think we should extract more information from him with another maybe a technical session or something like that. We will be in contact with you maybe after COVID or something like that, so that we can provide us an excellent technical session also. So thank you very much for coming here in this weekend and this Sunday, and giving us your time, your valuable time, because you are a very busy person. I know about from the credentials you have. So very, very thank you from KSEB Engineers Association, from all participants who had attended this session. It was very, very informative. Thank you.
ഈ ഒരു ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി കിട്ടിയത് വളരെ സന്തോഷം. ഓക്കെ, സാബുവിനും എല്ലാവർക്കും സന്തോഷം വിളിച്ച കാര്യം എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ വളരെ റയറായിട്ട് ഒരു ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിൽ നിന്ന് ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു അസോസിയേഷൻ വിളിക്കുള്ളൂ. അപ്പം അത് ഞായറാഴ്ച ഇത്രയും പേര് ഒന്നിച്ച് വന്നു നിന്നത് സേസ് എ ലോട്ട്. ഇതിനിടയ്ക്ക് സഞ്ജയ് ഒരു ചോദ്യം ചോദിച്ചു, എങ്ങനെയാണ് പിള്ളേര് സൈബറിൽ ഒരു കരിയർ ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന്. ഇത് നല്ലൊരു ഫീൽഡാണ് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട്. പഴയ ട്രഡീഷൻ വെച്ചിട്ട് 5 കൊല്ലം നെറ്റ്വർക്കിലോ അല്ലെ സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയറിലൊക്കെ പോയി നിന്നിട്ട് സെക്യൂരിറ്റിയിൽ കയറാൻ പറ്റുള്ളായിരുന്നു. ഡിമാൻഡ് ആൻഡ് സപ്ലൈ മാറിയപ്പം ഇഷ്ടംപോലെ ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി ഉണ്ട്, ഇഷ്ടംപോലെ കോഴ്സുകളുണ്ട്. അതിൽ കേരളത്തിൽ നമുക്ക് നല്ല കുറെ സൈബർ ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട് എല്ലാ ഇതിലും. അപ്പം അത്രയും കോഴ്സുകളുണ്ട്, കയറി വരാൻ എളുപ്പമാണ്. എപ്പോഴെങ്കിലും അസിസ്റ്റൻസ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ I can guide you what is required. LinkedIn ആണ് one of the best way to connect back to me. I'm quite active there. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ we can always meet up anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right.
We will be in contact with you.
Thank you, sir.
Anytime, happy to be, sir. ഞാനും നാട്ടുകാരൻ, ഞാൻ തിരുവല്ലക്കാരനാണ്.
Okay. ഞങ്ങള് പല സ്ഥലത്തു നിന്നുള്ളവരാണ്, ഓൾ ഓവർ കേരള.
ഇരുവിപേരൂർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ സ്ഥലമുണ്ട് തിരുവല്ലയ്ക്ക് അപ്പുറത്ത്, കുമ്പനാട്. ഇരുവിപേരൂർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ സ്ഥലം, അവിടെ നിന്നാണ്. Thanks a lot. Bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabu sir. Also,
thank you.
Who has coordinated all the efforts. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sabu.
Yes, sir.
Sabu.
Yes. Yes. Very good. 200 participants ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അതെ, ഒരു റെക്കോർഡാണ്.
Excellent. നമുക്ക് we have to leverage him more.
Yes. നമുക്ക് ഏറ്റവും